I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We've all got enemies, and now what we need is friends. Trying to hold on to my friends who have different opinions, victims of the tribalism in a broken system. Sometimes it feels like I've been chasing down a hopeless mission, but it's a crime to have an open mind and see it different. Black and white, red and blue, they split us like a prism. They sow division and we misdirect our good intentions, but denigrating and snitching upon our neighbors isn't doing anyone no favors. There's graver danger. Can they really keep us safe with a baton and taser? Imposing fines on people who dare to show their faces, arresting people for trying to earn their honest wages. Still don't believe that we ain't free cause we can't see the cages. What's the difference? Social distance stuck inside our places, frustrated, casting blame, forgetting what is sacred. It only ends when we can set aside our differences, bring the wisdom in and build the future worth living in. I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We all got enemies. Now what we need is friends. So I'm the enemy for questioning what they tell me. Cover up your face, human connection isn't healthy. We're all in this together as long as we stay apart. 2 weeks to flatten the curve and here we are. Do we really know the cost of never seeing a smile? Can we control the virus with some arrows in an aisle? With stay-at-home orders and lining up single file? Or are we just being naive and living in denial? Is anybody doing
Don't touch anything, she says. I have it, she says. All right, everyone, welcome to Diverge Media. I'm your host and co-owner, Greg Staley. We have RC the rapper tonight, aka, I meant to say Conrad Goodsir, aka Conrad, or aka RC the rapper. Wow, I'm just wrecking this intro. But we're excited for our guest tonight. We think he has a lot of talent. Lyrically, we thought a lot of his lyrics were spot on, so we wanted to talk about some of his thoughts on what's been going on with COVID and use his music as an intermittent discussion point. So without further ado, Conrad Goodsir, everyone. She's so mad at me. Like, I've been doing the producing for my own for a couple weeks now, and now she's back and she's stopped touching stuff. I'm getting angry. So yeah. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah. Made it just in time here. I'm in the same boat. My manager's been yelling at me for the last couple hours. And now it's all working. So I'm not going to touch anything. Yeah.
No. So for our viewers who don't know who you are, what's your music history look like? So I see on the YouTube channel, there's a bit of a break there. It looks like you took a hiatus of a few years and then you got back into it. Looks like when the lockdowns kind of kicked off. That's kind of what I see.
Yeah, you got it. That's basically what happened. I've been making music for a long time. I started recording about 20 years ago, back when I was about 15, 16 years old. And I've made music the whole time, but I've taken big breaks within that period of time. I just never really got serious. Like I never really, I would come in and out when I was younger. When I was around 18, I put out some mixtapes and I had a bit of a buzz going on locally. But I grew up, life happened, things kind of fizzled out. I lost my passion, and I felt like, because music is to me, it represents the artist as a person. So in order to make interesting music, to some degree, you have to sort of live an interesting life. And so I guess for a little while there, I didn't think I was living a very interesting life, and I didn't feel like I had a lot to write about. But every now and then I would get inspired, and something would trigger my creative spark, and I would want to write a song about something, whether it was something personal or something going on in the world. And this happened a few times. Like on my channel, there's a song called "Go to Church," and so basically what happened there was I was on a hiatus. I had other things going on in my life. I always had a home studio, and I always considered myself an artist. But when those couple really bad like police brutality incidents happened that I reference in the song, Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, that inspired me. That pissed me off enough to get me to stop what I was doing and write a song about something that concerned me. And so that's kind of been the formula for the last 20 years. I just kind of just kind of haven't really orchestrated a serious push with the music, but then every now and then I would get inspired by something, drop a song. And then with COVID and all this stuff, that was kind of just it's kind of a blessing in disguise for me, because that there's no turning back after that in more way than one. So because of the situation in the world, I felt like I had no choice, and it was time for me to use my voice once again and start making music. And so that's what I've been doing ever since the pandemic began, and I'm not going to stop until it stops.
So what was that moment for you? What was the circumstances that led up to, I need to write again, I need to have my voice out there and have other people see if it resonates? Because part of, like, I come from my background. I used to be in a punk band, for people that don't know, and part of me, like, when you write something, you want it to resonate with people, because it's almost, for me, it was like edification that what I had to say mattered, and that it was resonating with other people. So I don't know if that's the same with you, but what was it that caused you to go to that point? And then were you hoping that it resonated the way it did? And what's that been like for you?
I think ultimately what it boils down to is it's like the music is a vehicle. It's a powerful vehicle for me. But the music has always been about more than the music itself to me. So for example, like, a lot of my songs will touch on really sort of deep, intense topics, and that's because for the same reason. I get inspired by things, but for me, I guess when I saw where the world was heading, again, it felt like I didn't really have a choice. It wasn't about doing it for anybody, for other people to relate to, or for myself to feel accomplished. It was more because, like, I really believe that we are in a dire situation in the world right now, and if we don't do anything collectively, even in the next 5 or so years, we're collectively going to be in pretty big trouble. So to me, it was more like I have to do something. I don't have a choice. And for me, that's the best thing I know how to do is make a banging song with a cup full of truth in it. So yeah, it was just a no-brainer. It was just a natural sort of a natural sort of course of nature, if you will.
You say a cup of truth. So let's talk about that. We have your lyrics in front of us. Let's start with the song Friends. So that was the opener tonight, was the song Friends that you did. So one of the lines in it: so I'm the enemy for questioning what they tell me. Cover up your face, human connection isn't healthy. So I just wanted to ask outright, what prompted you to write that line? I obviously kind of know where I'm coming from on the mask wearing, and we've written extensively on it, but what was it for you that brought you to that line in the song?
Well, that whole sort of run there, where I start the second verse, and I'm for the whole, like, first half of that second verse there, I'm kind of I'm just basically sort of asking questions, and I was trying to sort of capture the how would you put it, the sort of the logical fallacies, if you will, in a lot of our basic understanding of this stuff, or what we're told, because we get a lot of surface level stuff that sounds like it might make sense in a vacuum, completely on its own, when not compared to anything else, or with no further investigation of any kind. But then if you take it out of the vacuum and you compare it to something else, or you look into it further, it just doesn't hold water. So that's what I was trying to do with that whole section. Is I was just trying to bring to light some of the some of the things that just don't add up to me and just don't make a lot of sense. So I'm the enemy for questioning what they tell me. I feel like a good way to get people to think, and that's what I'm trying to do, basically, especially in friends. But a good way to get people to think, rather than just try to shovel things down their throats or be demeaning, is simply to just ask questions, and frame things in a way that it's impossible to get around. So that was sort of the idea there. Just keep it really simple, and just propose things in a way that people have to think about them on their own. And that was sort of the basic premise for that whole first section of that second verse there.
Well, one of the other things you nailed, I think, in this, and this was when I heard it, I laughed because I was like, man, it's like the same points we talk about on our channel and with a lot of the articles we've done. And we point out some of those things. Like you say, I'm the enemy for questioning what they tell me. You talk about the mask and the human connection. I think about that all the time. And I've said, what are the long-term consequences of that on children, especially in developmental stages? But then it's affected every facet of life. You say there's no cost benefit, or is anyone doing a cost benefit analysis? And it was that line for me I heard, and I went, oh, now I got to reach out, because we talk about this stuff all the time. Yeah. Even I guess the premise is even if the actions today were saving lives, has anybody considered the consequences for tomorrow? And you posed that question in the song, and I thought you did it quite brilliantly. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is sort of back to looking at things in a vacuum, because that's the way that a lot of this data is presented. And again, if you're able to take it out of the vacuum and compare it to things, then that's when you start to get a much clearer picture. And so yeah. Yeah. And just manager, yeah.
That's all good. Sorry, do you want sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So just can you refresh my memory? What
I was talking about that line, the cost benefit analysis, and specifically kind of forcing someone to deal with that question.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of trade-offs here, right? And what we see the media focusing on is just COVID cases and deaths, and that's it. And they'll flip-flop between those two, depending on what suits their agenda better that day. But if you step outside the box again, and you start asking questions and you start thinking about this stuff, well, pretty quickly you're going to realize that there's probably more negative trade-offs than there are positive ones for these strategies that we've implemented. Because what possible good can come from masking up kids, forcing them to sit in plexiglass barriers, indoctrinating them to think that their classmates are viral vectors, that are dangerous? Nothing good at all can come from that. And then when you start thinking about, okay, well, why are we doing this in the first place, and you start looking at the data, and then you realize that, for example, I think in the States, it's something absolutely ridiculous. It's like since the start of the pandemic to date, within a month or so, I think there's been like 72 kids under the age of 16 or 18 who have passed away from COVID. And even when I say that, you might be able to say, oh, okay, well, maybe these measures could help save 72 children. Well, okay, and that might even sound logical until you start comparing how many kids die from asthma, how many kids die from car accidents, how many kids die from drowning, how many kids die from stroke. The data is a little bit harder to get at in Canada, where I'm from, but in the States, more kids have died from strokes than from coronavirus. And I didn't even know that kids had strokes. But so, more kids are dying from drowning. So should we mandate life preservers for everybody at all times?
Well, I feel people have become in general less trusting, and this is what the result is you get people, there's just pushback where people aren't buying it anymore. I think we're at that point, but nobody's talking about those questions of the cost benefit of analysis, because everybody wants to come out and be the hero and grandstand on emotion and say our measures are saving lives, and nobody talks about. And also, you kind of like, I'm not saying you in general, but like when we bring up these hard conversations, you kind of sound like a prick when you say like you start comparing body counts. There's no good time to do that, right? Like,
yeah.
And so it's a hard conversation to have, especially with the emotional climate that we're in. I feel like it gets lost in the shuffle. It's like, no, it's the job of leaders not to lead based on emotion, but to lead based on data and facts. And like you said, there's, yeah, you might look at the number of COVID deaths in children in the States and say that's scary, but it's like how many kids drowned in pools last year, and how many. Yeah. And so we're going to start banning all these things, and it's just our perspective on it's so warped because of the fear, I think. But that's my take on it. But you've been doing some protests, freedom rallies, things like that. You've been performing that way, but I didn't ask this in the questions, but I wanted to ask, what has it been like performing music during COVID? So obviously everything's shut. All the clubs and things you would normally go to perform are gone. And not to mention that but you're also in Calgary. So I can't imagine there's a ton of places to begin with out there for performance for live artists.
Yeah. Well, it's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, nobody's doing shows right now except me because I get to piggyback off these rallies. So I've performed a couple of shows at holes in the wall type of thing before, but that's about as far as I took it before the pandemic. And so I don't really have anything to compare it to. Or don't have much to compare it to, but I think I'm a unique case. But the pandemic seems to have, in fact, created the opportunity for me to perform live, and yeah, it's just really interesting the way things are working because, like I said, nobody's performing, everything's shut down. Like a concert is literally, I think it's considered illegal right now or whatever.
Yeah,
but these rallies, because we understand our rights and we know that we're protected by the charter, and so the police can fine us all they want, and these charges aren't going to hold up in court because the charter literally says that we have the right to a peaceful assembly. So when I started getting involved in these rallies, I got involved through my music because I had already made the virus, and then I started attending the rallies right after the virus came out, and then quickly linked up with some people in the community, and then they heard my music and they immediately wanted me to come out. And so basically I got to go from having one song on YouTube that people liked, but it was just one song, one video. Basically went from that to performing at my first rally in Calgary. We shot the video for Friends. So Friends wasn't even out yet when I performed the first time, but it was like I just got to show up. There was already this crowd that was pre-made for me. I think it was like about 1,400 people, and Friends was inspired by attending the rallies in a lot of ways. But yeah, so I've been able to just sort of piggyback on the rally and boost my own audience that way. Because it was kind of funny when I performed for the first time in Calgary, a lot of people didn't know who I was. A surprising amount of people did, actually. They were like, people were coming up to me and being like, "Oh, I heard the virus." I think that's because of the territory. You know, a lot of the people at the rally are interested in that kind of thing, and follow the same kind of people and groups that I do online. But yeah, when I got up there, it was like people didn't quite know what to expect. You could like feel it in the air. People like you just had all these, you know, these older gentlemen getting up and speaking about freedom, and this young looking guy grabs the mic and they tell the crowd he's gonna rap, and you could just see it on people's faces. They were kind of caught to the side and kind of looking at me, and then I started going. And with it, by like the first two lines in the song, people, like the whole mood changed. People, they started bopping to it, and I could see like people from all walks of life in the crowd right in front of me just come into life. And as I started going through the lines, people started, you know, oh, and yeah.
It's funny, like people. So you had the opportunity right off the bat. You said it kind of gave you the opportunity, but like 1400's nothing to scoff at as a musician. That's like a festival stage during the day or something. That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like it was like a serious crowd. The energy was there for sure.
So do you feel like you just won them over? Because it's like people like to put music into categories, but good music is good music, and people will resonate with good music, period. I think that's what happened, but maybe you had a bunch of hesitancy because it's not the normal genre they would find themselves listening to in that age demographic.
I think they just didn't know what to expect, right?
That's my wife. Our daughter knows all the words and sings along to Friends. Yes, she does.
Right on. Well, hey there, Kate. Yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, I think I think they just didn't know what to expect, because there's a certain connotation when people say rap music these days. What people expect is it's going to be, and so yeah, they hadn't. There was no disclaimer really. There wasn't like, he's gonna rap about the pandemic. You know, the announcement was sort of just like, there's a rapper and he's gonna rap. So I had made some announcements on social media and stuff, but most of the people there hadn't seen any of that, had no idea who I was. So it was just kind of a funny moment to see everybody just kind of yeah, it was really cool, because yeah, they were totally hesitant and just not really sure about me to begin with, but literally by the end of the song, I'd only performed it once, and you can I didn't fully notice it at the time, but when I was watching some of the footage back later, you can see people in the crowd singing along with the last chorus. Like the first time they heard the song, and it's catchy enough that by the time the chorus rolled around a third time, people were already singing along. So I thought that was that was some good feedback for sure.
No, that's live feedback. That's real-time feedback. And so that's why that, you know, that ability, that's one of the things I missed about performing, was being able to win over a crowd. My music sucked, for the record. No one look up my name and find it, please, for the love of God. No one find what I used to do musically. But I had a lot of fun.
Art is art.
Well, I don't know if you can classify what I did as art. But from your song, The Virus, I actually really liked that intro, and I wanted to talk about it. You had, I wanted to ask who you were quoting, but you had the relative PCR does not mean that you're infective as part of the intro. Was that actually from Kerry Mullis himself, or is that somebody else talking about, obviously, Kerry Mullis's test? Yeah,
so that is, I butcher his first name, but it's his name is Dr. it's something like Sucharit Bhakti, and okay. I believe he was born in Thailand, and he's a permanent resident of Germany or something along those lines. Anyway, he is he's an epidemiologist, and he's published a lot of papers. He's world class. If you just look up Dr. S. Bhakti, and I think that last name is like Bhakti. But
Yeah.
he's done a number of talks on podcasts and things of that nature. And that clip came from a podcast that he did. I can't remember the name of the outfit that he did the interview with, but yeah, I highly recommend, like if anybody's looking for good information and a voice of reason in all this craziness, definitely look up Dr. Bhakti, because that's exactly what he is. But yeah, that's where that came from. I had come across him in my research, and that intro, that intro was a lot of work.
Oh no, you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was kind of just free flowing. Like I was what's that?
Non-compromisable.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had a bunch of bookmarks, like of just links that I thought were interesting or important, and so I was going through those, and yeah, I was kind of scanning through his interview, and I came across that moment, and I just thought, with where I was at and what I was looking for in the intro, it was pretty much the perfect thing to just to sort of to ramp up that final crescendo of that intro there.
It really worked well because it stood out immediately. It was really well blended, but also just hit home, because to hear that, I don't know, obviously our audience knows and follows us, but for anyone new here, but like the PCR test was referenced in Portugal court case. Anything over 35 cycles, 35 cycles was less than 3% infectious. So out of 100, you would have 3 that would actually infect someone else. And we ran 33 to 45 across Canada. I believe Canada, or Ontario specifically, is 40 last I checked, unless they've moved the numbers. But this is what they're running at. So you bring up the PCR test right before you go into the song, The Virus, and then that stuck out immediately, because I'm like, okay, so what's he about to say? But then we go into another line here. Whoever would have thought that we could slip so far? The world locked down in a world without bars. Suspicious of our neighbors, arguing with their friends. It's like we're counting down the days till society ends. So I want to get your thoughts about that, but because when you said counting down the days to society ends, I thought it was pretty accurate assessment of kind of the general vibe of the days. It's just, for the people that are paying attention, they're watching things going on and counting down the days till the real trouble begins. And then the other people that are maybe worried about the virus, they think the same thing, but for different reasons. So I thought it was an apt line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. I feel like yeah, the people, yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it. The people who can see what's going on, we're marginalized and we're censored and we're scrubbed from the internet and all this stuff. And the people who can't see it, or the people who maybe can't, they're on the fence, but they don't care enough because they haven't been affected. You know, maybe they've got a nice work from home job, and you know, they're not minding the pandemic too much because they get to just roll out of bed and log into Zoom, and it's better than it was before for them. So you know, if they're not feeling any sort of pressure, or they don't feel like their quality of life has suffered, then yeah, a lot of people are just sort of waiting to see what happens. And then of course there's the people who are just totally terrified, and they just haven't come out of their house since you know, May of 2020. And all across the board, we're all just sort of stuck in our little compartments, just watching the show, and you know, isolated in our own ways. Nope. Hey. So it looks like we lost Greg.
Are you in there by yourself?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Maybe you should start rapping.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Put your new song on.
Oh, we'll see if Greg can make it back, or
Do you think that we have to relink with him?
I don't know. We didn't really have a contingency plan.
If this were to happen.
So yeah, just hold tight, guys.
We lost our.
Yeah, we lost Greg.
All right, everyone. Sorry about that.
Oh, there.
Jeez, here. Idea what happened? The internet dropped completely here for like 20 seconds. I don't know.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, stop talking about real things there, okay? You're gonna get us.
Yeah. So maybe we triggered an alarm somewhere in Ottawa.
It's always the joke, but I just think Kitchener's internet is that terrible. Like, from what I've heard, it's just terribly old lines, and they just can't keep up. You have high-speed internet, but it's not until they fix things. But beggars can't be choosers.
High speed running on low speed wires from
Yes,
1989.
like copper wires still. Yeah, like pretty much they're like 70 years old, but they will work. Sorry, but let's get back.
Well, yeah. Well, welcome back. Yeah. So I don't know where we left off. I was just saying. I was just talking about how yeah, we're all across the board. We're all sort of isolated in our own ways, and just yeah, just sort of watching the show. Everyone's just feeling kind of powerless at this point, and the whole like fighting with our neighbors, arguing with our friends. It's like all that frustration that we have. To me, it seems like we're directing it in the wrong places. We're directing it towards our peers, our friends. We're directing it towards the person who's walking down the street without a mask, when the real reason that we're suffering so much, some of us right now, it's got nothing to do with a virus, and it's got everything to do with the people who run our countries and institutions.
Yeah, like the one line in there, I'm trying to remember it, but you can get it out. You talk about misdirecting our good intentions. There's something you say before it, but then you say, then they use it to misdirect our good intentions. Can you give us that line? And then I just want to reflect on that. Yeah,
so that was, what was it? That's at the start of Friends.
Sorry,
yeah, so
trying
to hold on to my friends who have different opinions, victims of the tribalism in a broken system. Sometimes it feels like I've been chasing down a hopeless mission, when it's a crime to have an open mind and see it oh no, wait, that's the first verse. Okay, no, wait.
Hold up here.
Oh no, that isn't. It was coming right up. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just trying to remember what the lead in was. They sow division and we misdirect our good intentions. What was before that? What's the lines to my song?
For the record, I blanked on stage as I'm playing a song to the lyrics of my own song. So
yeah.
Denigrating and switching upon our neighbors.
Yeah, but before the good intentions line?
Isn't doing anyone no favors. There's graver dangers. Now I'm going through it.
Oh yeah. 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 Oh my God, I can't get the. Okay. Yeah, but anyway.
We'll settle for the generalized idea.
Yeah. We get the idea. But yeah. So I was just talking about how that I'm talking about the same thing in Friends. Because I don't know if you noticed, but it's kind of I'm saying the same things in different ways, in a lot of ways. One of my idols, Tupac, I consider very good at this. He would basically be saying the same thing over and over and again from song to song, but saying it in new and refreshing and even more clever ways all the time. But yeah, so I was just referring to again how we they sow division, and that obviously, like the media, this whole black versus white, left and right rhetoric, mask versus anti-mask. They're just and this goes like, this predates COVID too. This has been going on for a long time, but divide and conquer is the motto, and they're looking for more and more ways to divide us into smaller and smaller groups that hate each other. And so yeah, that line's just referring to how we fall for this trap over and over again, and we misdirect our good intentions because we mean well. We're frustrated, and we want to see a better world. But a lot of us just don't know how to do that. And so we lash out at the first thing that we can sort of blame or understand, put in the targets, put in the bullseye. First thing that comes along. And these days, with the way the media is, they're literally telling you what to think. Yeah. So for people who are, sitting at home frustrated, who have lost a lot over this pandemic, seeing the media every single day tell them, oh, the people who flew away for spring break and the people who visited their families and the people who aren't wearing masks are the reason that you've lost your business and that you're still on lockdown a year later. It's easy enough to fall for. And so,
it's on both sides, and that's what gets missed is, it's not just the liberal or the left or the right. I hate using that. I don't even like identifying that way. It's not just them getting gaslighted. It's both sides, and it's on different things, when at the end of the day, Canadians need to win together, and we need to be united to a better country. And so the infighting needs to stop. And I love that line, because the thought that came to mind was exactly that, was like groups like BLM, where there's a lot of people have great intentions when they join those groups, but they may not know. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids that have ideals in their mind that sound good when they join a lot of groups too, like Antifa, but real world applications different. And so the vision of our good intentions is actually one of the things that they use to gaslight us. They almost emphasize these issues so that and you have to pick a side, right? There is no middle ground on a lot of the stuff today. And that's what I've noticed since when, like, even 15 years ago, like when I was a kid, you used to be able to have a neutral opinion and try to find the reasonable middle ground. And I want to get your take on that, but I don't really feel like you can do that anymore. I'm watching, Twitter is like a toxic environment, but that feels like society today in general. They just lash out at people that disagree. If you don't, you can think, but you have to think the right think. And if you don't think the right think, then it's the wrong think. There is no middle ground. At least that's how I feel. Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts here, and I think you're right. It's the climate has shifted a lot, and a lot of people don't let you have a neutral standpoint anymore, because if you're not with them, then you're against them. You're not allowed to have a nuanced perspective that takes parts of this and parts of that and tries to find some balance between them, because that makes you a bigot.
Yeah, you don't have morality if you don't take their position. That's the general stance.
Yeah. But so and the second part of this thought, though, is I think that that while this is true, it's the climate has been shifted by a very vocal, very angry minority. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you travel around online, and you might see a comment section that makes you want to throw up. But what we have to remember is that the online landscape is heavily censored. So and I know this because I've had my IP banned, shadow banned from CBC's commenting section for talking about things like Sweden, like data, like hard data from Sweden and hard data from the CDC. Apparently, these things will get you banned from the comment section.
If I just use COVID in an article from WordPress and posted to Facebook, it takes down my thumbnail image. That's why you'll see a bunch of our articles with just our logo.
And so like we know this because that's the side of the coin that we're on, and we're trying to push through this this veil of censorship, and so we're constantly bumping up against it, right? We know it's there, but other people who don't care to investigate themselves so much and just like being told what to think and just get their information fed to them. A lot of those kind of people, you know, they're not going to have any idea that this veil of censorship even exists, because they just go online and they just think that that's the way it is. They think that everybody thinks like them, and anybody who tries to say that COVID isn't the worst thing in the history of mankind is some kind of terrible asshole.
Like somebody out to harm society in a general like threat to society. That's the image they painted anyway. It's like you're a lunatic if you don't fall in line. So
yeah, exactly. And so I take everything with a grain, you know, when I get online and I see this just incredible vitriol, this landscape that looks like there's no hope left for humanity. It looks like everyone's totally out to lunch and just completely indoctrinated. But when I interact with people in the real world, because you know, like I work at a music studio, I meet a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people from different walks of life, and I'm very hard pressed to find a person, like a single person in real life, who thinks like the comment section on some of these CBC articles, right?
Yes.
And again, I really do think that is because of the curated landscape that were presented by the internet.
I'll give you one right now. Randy Hillier is trending on Twitter. I don't agree with his tweet. I think it was a poor comparison, but it's like you look at why it's trending. It's 2,090 tweets the last I checked. So out of 38 million people in Canada, they've chosen to highlight that for probably obvious reasons, right? They don't like anybody that's got a following that's pushing the counter narrative. So if they can find something that they think will make them look foolish, they're going to push it. But there's an example of algorithm bias. I had a story. I had over 500 reshares, over 600 likes. I was on the potential conflict for the Supreme Court justice. At the same time, a story from Canada Land about Brian Lilly potentially dating a staffer in Premier Ford's office went viral with half amount of views as mine. And so it's stuff like this that people will never know. That's a bias they'll never know. You talk about that getting outside of the echo chamber. The algorithms, the more you click on a type of thing. So for instance, if I start watching the Howard Stern show, I don't watch the Howard Stern show, but if I watch one clip, I know because I watched one clip today. I got 4 more clips after that. So I'm going to start. Okay, so he must think like this. This is what the algorithm's doing all the time, and it's curating. Yeah. So if you are not the type that really has somebody pressing you in your friends list on your ideas and pressing from the opposite, you're not watching that stuff, you're only getting an echo chamber. And just because you're getting your echo chamber from the government doesn't mean your echo chamber is right either.
Yeah.
Which makes it more dangerous in my mind. I want to get your take on that. But when the government's the echo chamber, to me, that's more dangerous because there's experts speaking out. There's all sorts of doctors, epidemiologists that have come out, studies that have come out that lockdowns aren't effective, yet we continue to default to government's the expert.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you nailed it. Extremely dangerous precedent that's being set. If you look at the states, I like to refer to them, but because they've got a lot of data and they've just gone totally COVID crazy, right? So if you look at the states, Fauci has been the director of the NIH since 1984.
It's like 30 years. 30 plus years.
30 plus years. So the National Institutes of Health in the States. But yeah, so he's not a doctor, you know, he's a bureaucrat. He's an unelected bureaucrat who has held a top position at a health authority for over 30 years. So just let that sink in for a second. An unelected guy has been in office for going on 30 years, more than 30 years. And he's not really, you know, when did he last, brush up on his medical knowledge? He's got the NIH actually partnered up with Moderna to create their vaccine. So they worked on the development together, which means that the NIH provided funding as well to the Moderna vaccine. So that means they're basically partners. So Fauci's NIH is in bed with Moderna, and they're trying to push these unapproved vaccines on the population. And the same thing in Canada. We have all these health officials. They're unelected, and nobody asked for these people, but they've been thrust into these positions of authority because of the pandemic. And again, they're not operating based on science. They're operating based on political pressures. And that should be obvious to anybody looking at this. Anybody operating within the political sphere is going to be under political pressures to some degree, because there's certain people have agendas, and that's just the way humans work. People are going to want to get certain things accomplished, whether it's beneficial, benevolent, or not. When you are operating in the political sphere, there's going to be certain pressures, and that has little to nothing to do with science. And I think the one of the best examples of this whole thing is the mask issue, because you really don't have to be a rocket scientist to read some of these studies and understand what they're saying. The first thing that I did when I couldn't believe it when they implemented a mask bylaw here in Alberta in the summer of 2020, when the cases had the deaths, cases, everything had been going down for months, basically flatlined in the middle of summer, and then they implement a mask mandate. Made zero sense to me. So I'm like, this can't be about safety. If it was, then we should have masked up months ago. So let me learn about masks. Let me see what the scientific literature says. So one of the things I like to do is fact check the fact checkers. So some of the first fact checks that came out were like, masks don't deprive you of oxygen, and masks reduce the spread of viral transmission, this sort of thing. And so I would just go to PubMed or the British Medical Journal, BMJ, and I would just search their website for like terms like mask, COVID, surgical mask. And so over the course of a few months, I believe that I found like most, if not all of the available data on the planet in regards to masks. And not only did I look at the existing science, but I looked at all of the new science that claimed to support the idea that masks, are a good mitigator in a pandemic. There's literally no evidence anywhere of what they're saying. Their whole they say follow the science, and the science shows and studies show, and they just keep saying these catchphrases, but they never actually explain how that works. And when they do, they'll say, well, masks have been shown to reduce particles. It's a source control, they call it. And so it keeps your particles close to you or whatever. And then there's less particles in the air because of that. And then that shows or proves somehow that it's a good mitigator. But that is a hypothesis. That's not a conclusion.
No, and it's been tested in court too.
Yeah,
so what gets lost on people is it went to court. 2015, 2018, Ontario Nursing Association fought and won against mandatory masking for influenza season. It would have been a 6-month period. Arbitrators in both cases said there was insufficient evidence that it protected the patient or the nurse. Basically, it was a marginal benefit at best in the perfect conditions.
Yeah, and I believe the same thing happened in British Columbia. There was a nurses union who didn't want to wear the mask, and or maybe it was the flu shot, but
Could have been.
yeah, there's been similar cases around the world. There's been multiple surgical unions, or surgical, I don't know what you would call them, like the group of surgeons who work out of a certain hospital or clinic. They've released independent inquiries and studies and data sets that relieve them from the burden of needing to wear a mask, because they basically go in and they show that it makes no difference. In fact, it might actually be harmful. And so it's not necessary. So a lot of places, well, not a lot, but there are some places in the world who have looked at the data that are not wearing any masks in surgery, and you know, they're doing just fine.
People don't know about that, but I've talked about that on Diverge Media. You're talking about the bacterial unit, specifically that study. I think they were studying the bacterial units in the rooms, masked versus unmasked, and they just said people are the transmission of bacteria.
Yeah.
And it's basically the conclusion they came to: more people in a room, more bacteria.
I think I can't remember exactly the study, but I know the one you're talking about. I've seen the same one.
BPU,
and,
it's like bacterial something units per square foot. I don't know how they calculated it, but it's something weird like that.
Yeah, and so what if you go back in time? It's really interesting because there's studies done in like the 80s and 90s on bacterial infections versus masked surgeons, and they actually found that the masks made things worse
In terms of
back
infection.
in the 80s and 90s, and again, they attributed that to not to the masks. The masks are completely inconsequential, but what was not inconsequential was the number of people in the room, just point blank, period. But what they attributed these results to was the ventilation, because back in the 80s and 90s, the ventilation was not as sophisticated as it is now in surgery rooms, and it like now the airflow is designed in a way that is constantly drawing the air to the outskirts of the room and bringing fresh air into the operating area. But before that implementation, when people would wear masks, it would actually make things worse.
I think one of the other ones they cited was touching it, because they were conscious of something they had bothering them. So that's a cross-contamination potential every time. And so, and when they didn't have the mask, I think one of the other evidences they gave is they thought they were more conscious of having not to touch anything else, because they didn't have a perceived safety measure on their face, right? Yeah,
exactly. It just goes to show that these things, they don't really work the way that they're presented, because we're talking about a very very micro scale of existence, where it's kind of difficult for us to even imagine how things work at that scale, and it's not as intuitive as it might seem. Like it's really just more about the airflow in the building, the air currents, because when you're breathing in a surgical mask, you're not stopping it. You might be stopping it from going out this way, but it's going behind you, it's going above you. And
that's one of the fears Sweden had. Is Sweden said when they refused the mask, I did an article on their official medical literature, and they just said, listen, putting on a mask it causes plumes to high traffic areas of your face. And that was one of the very first videos I did on mask. As I said, it's just redirecting plumes to other high touch areas like your chest, your neck, your cheeks, so your eyes.
Yeah.
But it's not talked about. But I want to ask, because so we're talking about this. We locked down again. 17 or 18 states now have opened up. And the most recent I have here, I want to pull this up for you because it's just nuts to me. Like I'm looking at what's going on in Texas. And that's, of course, I'm going to pull up the dailymail.co.uk, but they got rid of their mask mandate, and they got rid of lockdown restrictions, and they've seen falling COVID case numbers for the 17th consecutive day. Now, Joe Biden called it Neanderthal thinking, said it would be a big mistake, but they've seen hospitalizations, dipped to 3,308, its lowest level since October. So, I mean, we have this parity over here in Canada where it's like the sky's falling, Chicken Little. If we don't keep doing this, you know, it's your fault. It's always Canadians' fault. But over in the States, we have them opening up. They got rid of the mask mandate. They reopened everything. And 17 consecutive days of dropped cases. So is the mask mandate work? I mean, it was this whole thing. Like it didn't, we've seen no benefit from mask wearing. But, you know, one thing I do think about is a New England Journal of Medicine article on mask wearing. It was one of the first ones I read. And it was one of the first ones I read on the show. Talked about masks are give a perceived sense of safety and may act as a talisman. This is what it actually says. I'll see if I can pull it up here. NEJM talisman. I bet you I find it. Yep, universal masking in hospital. It's the first one that shows up. All right, let's see if I can find that line. Talisman. All right. It is also clear that masks are symbolic rules. Masks are not only tools, they are talismans that may help increase healthcare workers' perceived sense of safety, well-being, and trust in their hospitals. Although these reactions may not be strictly logical, we are all subject to fear and anxiety, especially during times of crisis. So they said one might argue that fear and anxiety are better countered with data and education than with marginally beneficial masks, particularly in light of a worldwide mask shortage. Now, they turned around. This is an article that came out. They said this is when they didn't have it in place. And then you said they turned around, they put it in after the first wave. Well, they turned around and basically blamed it and said it was because there's a mask shortage. That's why. But then you read this article, and this is before they come out and say, well, it's because of the mask shortage. No, they're saying, and we have a mask shortage for people who actually need it, and it doesn't work, and the data says it doesn't work. That's what it's saying. But it gives you a perceived sense of safety, and it's a talisman. And I was like, man, this is like one of the first articles I'm reading on masking in the New England Journal of Medicine. And then I like turn on the news, and they're like, it saves lives. Save Granny. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but follow the science, I thought.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the cutoff is. Is it only
right?
science? I don't get it.
This is what's so crazy to me, and this is why I will never back down on the mask issue. I will never ever just be like, oh, you know, I'll whatever. I'll just put it on. I don't want to deal with it, because to me, wearing the mask is a symbol of the ignorance of the user. You think that is going to help you? Like you said, you can do a search, and you'll have two different endpoints. You'll have the media telling you that masks work, but then if you go directly to the science and like no bias at all, just look up data on masks, you'll find exactly what you're talking about. It's just a never-ending stream of masks don't work. Masks cause more problems. Masks are a talisman. Masks are ritual and theater and nothing more. That's literally what the science says.
And then you get non-randomized control trials that say we sprayed aerosols at a mask.
Yeah.
And it reduced by 95%. Yeah. And then like the next week, they're like, well, double masking doesn't work. Sorry, we messed up.
Yeah. You got studies on hamsters.
I think you guys might be losing the plot. I don't. You got to stop doing this.
Yeah, like there was one study that was trying to show that masks work, and it was I believe it was even peer reviewed, and they said in that study that there's no randomized control trials on Earth. They're like, unfortunately, you know, we would love to have that data, but it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, I found like 6 or 7, at least, just off the top of my head that I can remember. Like there's not that many, to be fair, but
6. Like,
yeah, there's
6.
like
it's not enough, but
yeah, but every time they do it, it shows the same thing, right? So when they talk about particle filtration and lab tests, coughing into petri dishes with a mask and without a mask, these are all secondary data points. And what they're alluding to.
Point. Sorry, I gotta go on the petri dish one. Pisses me off because nobody talks about that one. if
Yeah,
it's
like
bacteria that
it's not
grew
a
on a
conclusion.
petri dish, it didn't prove infection was capable. You could do that with any.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not a conclusion. It's a
and then,
hypothesis.
okay, now we'll take a bacteria culture from the inside of the mask because it
Yeah.
stopped it, right? So it's going somewhere. Like, well,
Right?
maybe that would be a secondary point of your study to talk about the importance of good hygiene measures if you're going to be wearing it, but they don't. It's like the whole like the surgical mask is good and the cloth was fine for a while, and now the cloth's crap and people give you dirty looks, and some places will actually try to demand that you wear it. The only thing I differ on is, like, I get feeling like seeing people in masks are uneducated, and there's been enough time that's elapsed. I just think there's a lot of people that get on and get along. And I'll tell you, my audience here may not expect to hear this, but full disclosure, I've been wearing the mask lately because last time I went out, I had an incident with like a 20-year-old kid who wanted to go at me, and my wife was with me. And like, I have a Muay Thai background, a jiu-jitsu background. I know how to handle myself, and I saw red. And I was worried that, like, I'm like, man, what happens if I get provoked into something stupid because I'm just out trying to get groceries? And so now I'm doing it, but it's literally, I'm worried about those situations. I don't want to have another moment like that where I'm questioning what could happen because, you know, my kids are around and things like that. So I think the environment around mask has gotten so toxic because it's like, man, I disagree, but if I say anything, I hate granny. I'm a piece of garbage. I don't care about society. I just want to watch it all burn. You know what? Might as well just hand me the gasoline and I'll just start burning down, because that's basically what I am to society now. I don't get how we got there, but it's like that neutral ground of just like, listen, I've looked at studies. I know my government says one thing, but I think the government saying it makes it so it's hard for people to hear that secondary point of opinion. So that appeal to authority is really hard to get around. So I don't like, that's where music comes in for me, because the music will cut right through the divide of politics and culture and just hit somebody in the heart with truth.
Yeah. You know, no, I agree. I agree to a certain extent. You know, that maybe that was a bit harsh, but I don't mean that people who wear masks are, you know, they're bad people or there's inherently something wrong with them. Because like you say, a lot of them just, you know, they don't have the time. They just don't know, right? And I'm there. Yeah, they're. When I say ignorance, I just mean like they literally just, they don't know. They haven't looked into it, and they're just sort of going along
in the most sincere form of the word, like the purest form of the word, like just to not know.
And you know, I've had the same kind of experience. I feel like because I don't really wear a mask unless I absolutely have to, and I will fight tooth and nail to the bitter end. In my attempts to enter venues and not wear a mask. And for a long time it was fine, it seemed like. But something happened like a couple of months ago. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like things just reached a boiling point, and people are really getting frustrated with the lockdowns, and, you know, like we've been talking about, misguided good intentions. People are frustrated. They're trying to do the right thing, and they lash out in the wrong places. I had somebody get a little testy with me at a grocery store. It was very busy in the middle of a Saturday. I needed some things. So I usually try to go early in the morning or late at night so that I don't have to you know, horrify people with my naked face.
All right, the terribleness.
So you know, I'm not trying to be totally inconsiderate. I'm going out of my way to some degree to accommodate people, but I just draw the line at obstructing my breathing, because there's something else I can talk about too. After being forced to wear a mask at a ski resort, I actually got kind of sick, and I believe that I contracted some mild form of like a bacterial pneumonia. But I can come back to that. But that's why I just draw the line firm in the sand there, because to me it has a detrimental effect on my health. I don't know how people can go around wearing these things, because when I put one on, it's like within seconds and within minutes, I'm very uncomfortable. I can feel it. My lungs start like cramping up. I don't know if that's just me, but
well, I wear like the thinnest thing I can wear, and again, this is my full-time job right now. I'm doing Diverge Media full-time. So for me, it's not like I'm wearing an 8-hour shift and I have to go through this. But like where I stand on it is like my wife got walked out because she wouldn't wear one at work. I don't believe it's effective, but it's everybody's so gaslighted on this issue, and I hate to see the divide because it's like the politicians and the elite win when that happens. And it's just a lot of scared people that think it is helping, and a lot of people that know better but are afraid to say something. And we need leadership. There's a big divide in leadership, and people need to just be willing to eat crow as they speak up for other people to come behind them. And I guess I talk about it all the time, like with the mask, but it's like I'm sick and tired of seeing the anger and the fighting from both sides, where it's like I get the reaction. Every action has a reaction. And I think, people crapped on the mask or anti-maskers, as they call them, for so long that people snapped and they started going back the other way. But it's just, that's exactly what they want. Because then we're not talking about the problems. You're just talking about the symptoms of a problem, not the actual problem itself.
Exactly. Yeah. And, part of my strong stance on masks is my belief that me going around doing this, and when I'm confronted with some sort of security guard or clerk who doesn't know the bylaw, I make my best attempt to educate them. And if I have to, I'll talk to a manager. And I find that in a lot of cases, establishments and individuals, they just don't know the bylaw. They assume that there's no medical exemptions. In fact, here in Alberta, because I've had this conversation so many times and talked to so many people about it, I'm sort of getting a picture is emerging to me. But a lot of managers, business managers, restaurants especially, they say that AHS, Alberta Health Services, has been coming in with bylaw officers to make a show of force.
Exactly.
And they're telling them that they're not to allow anybody in the establishment without a mask, that they are not to accept any exemptions, that if somebody presents a medical exemption card, it's not valid. And they just say these things. They say these things verbally, and then they leave. And the managers never look at the bylaw, and that's literally not what the bylaw says. That is a total misrepresentation of the bylaw. And so I've had some interesting experiences with people where they because one of the things I like to do is go into an establishment, and if they ask if I have a mask or if I can wear a mask, the first thing I say, I respond to their question with a question. I say, are you guys enforcing the bylaw or a private policy? And most of the time they'll say, oh, well, yeah, like the bylaw, the bylaw that says you have to wear a mask. And I'm like, I'm exempt. And then they go, oh, and that sort of like fries their brain because they think that the mask bylaw means you have to wear a mask and there are no exemptions. And then so we discussed it a little bit, and I've pulled up the bylaw and showed people, and where it literally says anyone with physical or mental concerns is exempt. That's an entire category of exemption here in Alberta, and no proof or identification is required, and individuals may self-identify that they are exempt, because the on the back end of that, a lot of people once they figure out your stance, they'll say, well, show me your card, show me the exemption, and so I just try to remain calm, like. That guy in the grocery store that was coming at me, he I saw him from like quite a ways away. He was like grilling me, and from like across the store, and so I didn't pay him too much time.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so I'm going about my business, and he's just like following me around the store from behind his mask, and I had to go get something that was like right beside where he was standing. And so I went up to him and over to where he was standing, trying to do my business. And he saw me coming from like a mile away, and he just stood there the whole time. I get up beside him, like just a few feet away, and he's like, "Get the F away from me." And I looked at him, and I was like, "Well, you saw me coming, dude. like if you didn't want to be close to me, this is a two-way street. And then he started just calling me an asshole, just swearing at me. And
how dare you exist in his space?
how dare I breathe? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my approach with these things is always the same. I attempt to educate, and some people, some people are receptive, like I said, but some people aren't, and there's nothing you can do about that. But all I can do is try and just stay true to myself. So I was just like, sir, like, have you read the bylaw? And he looks at me and he pauses for a second. He thinks about it. I can see the gears turning. He's like, should I or shouldn't I? And he's like, yes, I have. And I was like, oh, and what does the bylaw say? And he didn't have a response to that. I think he just called me some more names. And then he proceeded to get closer to me and be like, you need to just 6 feet away, as he's stepping towards me. But those kind of people you can't help. Hopefully they come around one day, but
they don't want to be helped, right? Those type of people, and this is the issue with COVID. And I actually think with the whole mask thing, I think the narrative campaign, the political campaign that came down after was because people weren't following it. And there was a lot of people that were like, this is stupid. I'm not going to do it as long as I can go about my day. And then it just shifted where they're like, no, you have to, and no exemptions. And they started coming down on everyone, and they just changed this narrative. So anybody without a mask was a bad person all of a sudden. And you talked about that narrative change. I was in a small grocery store, and it's the same thing. Person seen me without a mask, targeted me, was literally 10 or 12 feet away, proceeded to get closer so he could yell profanities at me, my wife, with my 9-month-old child in the cart, because he's a classy individual and human being. But this is the stuff that goes on. But it's this guy's like, F you, mother effer. And I think all I kept saying to him was, you want a patsies on the backseat, tough boy or tough guy, something like that. And it's just every time he'd escalate, I was like, you just want, and in my head, again, I have a Muay Thai background, and I'm just seeing red and trying not to. But this is the dynamic: is why would I? So you have these people that, like you experienced it, where they feel virtuous and they have an excuse now to just call someone out and try to be the tough guy because they think they have the society on their side. I'm in the right now. I can treat you like garbage and get away with it. And realistically, the government is at fault because they've greenlighted this kind of behavior, as well as the media, in my mind, with their rhetoric.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, I really try to come from a higher place spiritually, and I really try not to blame these people for their stance, for the way that they are, because it's we're all products of our environment to some degree. And it's a very, very toxic environment that we're all in, and it's unfortunately gonna produce toxic behaviors. But yeah, like I say, we just for people who are in the know, I think the best thing we can do is be true to ourselves and just try to send these people the love that they so desperately need.
Yeah, it's a fine line of not playing into the game they want, where you can't react in the way they want, but still have to react and respond in a sense of having your own counter narrative, but not following into the counter narrative they want you to put out. And it's these traps that are laid out where it's those misguided good intentions are laid traps a lot of times, and people don't think like that. But you do know there's agent provocateurs whose job is literally to help do stuff like this and infiltrate groups that are doing anything but I'm crazy, but that is a real thing that's happened, and it continues to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I understand how things work under the hood, and that's co-opting 101, the old send in the agent provocateur to make
be the best friend of everyone.
yeah, before making them all look like something they're not.
Yeah, well, out of context, right? You can. That's the old joke with The Simpsons. I was Rage McKenzie was on talking about the candy on the woman's butt, and they cut it to make him look like he was just a monster. Oh, candy can! He's grabbing at her butt or whatever, but it's just him peeling the candy off. That's the media in a nutshell. It feels like. But for everyone here that's been introduced to you tonight, where can they find your music? Where can they find your social media?
Yeah, so you can keep up with me on Instagram. I'm most active on there right now. You can follow me at rc.the.rapper. And yeah, I post all my new music up there. If you search for RC the Rapper on YouTube, you'll find my music videos, Friends and The Virus, and yeah, I got some other stuff on that channel. It's a bit more dated, but yeah, there's more music coming right away. Actually, we just recorded a new song last night, and
I heard it was a barn burner.
yeah, it's a banger. Yeah, it's so I'll give you a little synopsis. It's so you're probably familiar with Chris Sky.
Yep.
Yeah, and his hashtag campaign.
A hashtag campaign I'm maybe not familiar with. What's the hashtag campaign?
Okay, so just recently, within the last week or so, he decided to start up a social media campaign that's like, because you know how the media is, they have a certain spin when it comes to the shots, and so Chris wanted to put his own spin on the shots, and get his own sort of propaganda going, if you will. So he came up with the hashtag Just Say No, and the idea is to, say no to the vaccine and maintain some sort of control group, since the placebo recipients in a lot of the trials are now being given the shot, so they're actively destroying their placebo group that was supposed to be part of the clinical trials until 2023.
Yeah, you would think they would hold that's a very problematic thing, because now you've taken the placebo out of the trial, which is your comparison arm. And so, yeah, it might be great and effective in inducing antibody response 6 months in, but what's 1 year look like? What's 2 years look like? What's 3 years look like? What's 5?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's concerning, but I've outlined my concerns in opinion articles that can be read. I talk about, well, I think you read
find out.
Pfizer, $2.3 billion they were fined, criminal, and they were basically mismarketing drugs for unapproved purposes. So the FDA says, here, you can use this drug for this, and they go, yeah, I could do that, but I could also sell it for all these other things and make a ton of extra money, and then just pay the fine once you catch me. And they went, option number 2. They got caught. And it was $2.3 billion for Pfizer. Merck, which is tied to Janssen, was $900 million. That was one thing I wanted to bring up for you. Maybe you don't know, and I'll bring up for the audience here tonight. But Moderna partnerships. So mRNA strategic collaborators for Moderna, AstraZeneca, Merck, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I thought that was interesting. And this is another one that gets wrote off as conspiracy, but the number 2 funder of the World Health Organization, I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist, where's my tinfoil hat, is Bill Gates, everyone. Okay, Bill and Melinda Gates and the Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which is his organization. So it's just like 2 organizations, 2 different names, same funder. And it's responsible for the biggest portion of their funds. And you think he might not have some sway in global politics when it comes to medicine and things like that? I don't know. I think money talks, but I guess I'm just a crazy tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist running an independent media outlet. So that's Diverge Media in a nutshell. I was thinking about it today. I will get your thoughts on this, but like, there's going to be a day. If I get too much attention, they're going to come for me. And you must feel like that eventually too. Like the things I talk about, and I come after the narrative pretty hard, but do you ever feel like that? And we'll just close on this thought, where you ever worry about the things that you're saying coming back and somebody trying to throw it in your face? Or you just say, I was truthful at the time, I said my piece at the time, it was true to my heart, and it is what it is. Like, you don't look back at it with any chance. Like I don't know. I put out over 130 articles. I'm pretty sure somebody could find a few lines and and try to make me look bad is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I pride myself on being very educated about the things that I talk about. If I don't feel I'm up to snuff, I will disclose that and not offer too much of an opinion on the subject. But when it comes to this stuff, I've been looking at it since all of this began, and so that's where I'm like 10 months deep into my research now. And I'm to be honest with you, I that's what I fully expected. It sort of comes with the territory. And I'm ready for it, quite honestly. I expect to be attacked. I expect to be slandered. I expect them to come for me at some point. But I'm not really worried about it. And the reason I'm not worried about it is because the truth is on my side.
That's how I feel. I feel like everything I do, I try to reference directly to a credible source, whether it be medical literature, a scientist, a doctor, or the mainstream media themselves. I don't know if anybody notices that follows my work, but I love to reference the mainstream media against their own narrative.
Yeah.
So fun. So fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of that narrative, I want to close this off on this because I feel like this is a good way to end this out. This is from CBC. This is a January 22nd, 2020 report on hospital capacity in Ontario. Would you know it? 83 hospitals were beyond 100% capacity for more than 30 days. 39 hospitals hit 120% of their capacity for at least one day. And 40 hospitals in Ontario averaged 100% of their capacity or higher for the entire year. This was from January to June of 2019. They did that study. That's CBC. And you know what? They should be hammering that narrative every single day. Guys, it's bad. I know. I mean, even if they were overrun, right? But they're not. If you go on, well, actually, I have it here. I came prepared. Sorry, I wanted to bring this up. I really wanted to get this in because we just went into lockdown and I'm pissed, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But this is Ontario's surge capacity monitoring health system. So it monitors all the hospitals' surge capacity. And this is our surge capacity for the last hour by hospital. 109 at less than 50%, 33 at 50 to 70, 14 at 70 to 90, and just one at greater or equal to 90%. Yeah. That's the numbers in Ontario as we shut down.
Yeah.
And so Ontario's talking about it. You see the number, or sorry, CBC, you see the numbers. We were overrun before. And then you look at our surge numbers, we're not even overrun now. So we're actually below, if you go on the 30-day average right now, we're below the case count when you include COVID and influenza for new admissions than we were compared to the historical average of 2018 and 2019. I just checked the data before we went live.
Yeah. Yeah. You nailed it. Again, this goes right back to looking at data in a vacuum, right? Because when you hear that statement, we've exceeded 100% capacity. You know, if you have nothing to compare that to, if you're not aware of everything that you just said, that might sound alarming. But in context, it's not only completely normal, it's a slow season.
Well, there's your context. Green is good, right? Yellow is a little bit, that's that 50 to 70%. Orange is 70 to 90. Red is 90 or equal. There's one hospital right now. Yeah. This is your picture of Ontario Health. Yeah. But we locked down and we're willing to destroy business on a red dot and a couple of yellows and an orange. But apparently we can't transfer patients anymore. That's not something we're able to do in the Canadian medical system. So we have to shut everything down. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've enjoyed this discussion. It's always pleasant to get somebody's opinion that's well-informed and has a different approach and different thought process than most people. So I really do appreciate that. Your songs, Friends and The Virus, are absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend them to anyone here. And thank you so much for joining us again. This has been fun. And
yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, I'll back at you. I just want to say, I'm impressed by you as well. Thanks for everything that you're doing. Thanks for the opportunity. And just to tie off that last thought about the new song, it's called Just Say No. And it's about exactly what you think it is. And
when are you
it's,
expecting to release it there?
well, the song, yeah, we're not totally sure when we're going to be releasing it, but we're going to be shooting the video at the rally tomorrow. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to be in Calgary tomorrow,
Okay.
performing the song. So if anybody happens to be in the area, come down to Princess Island Park at 1 p.m. tomorrow and see me perform the song. But yeah, it should be out. Don't know exactly when, but it won't be too long. Hopefully this week. If not, definitely within the next couple of weeks, we should have the song and the video both out.
Exciting time. So you're obviously working towards an EP. It looks like you're getting close to kind of.
Yeah. I've been discussing this with the manager, and just going to keep building up the catalog and releasing them as they come. And then once we have a collection that we could call an EP, we're looking at maybe about 7 songs. Then we'll throw that up on Spotify.
Well, it's exciting. It's exciting, and if you're in the Calgary area tomorrow, make sure you check it out. And if not, I hopefully you'll be able to find a live stream of your performance. Somebody in the crowd streaming it out. Is your manager going to be streaming that out for you for your performance? Or?
Yeah, we'll somebody should be. We'll see what we can do about that. Yeah. It'll be on Instagram if we do. So yeah, again, just follow me there, rc.the.rapper. And yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. We should stay in touch, and best of luck to you as well.
For sure. I really appreciate it. And it was nice meeting you and speaking with your manager, Kelly, as well. So appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Nice meeting you, Greg.
Cool. Take care, man. Thanks again. Later.
You good? She's so mad at me if I